Yo, what's happening everyone? It's Mr. Premps and this is really a short video from me, or what I'm hoping will be a short video, because the purpose is really to get the thoughts of you guys and girls. I was talking to a friend today and we were discussing the growth of the Straw Hats, and as you're all probably aware, Zoro is always such a tender topic because he's definitely a fan favourite, so much that we look past his flaws. However, we were speaking about the Baratie arc and the battle between Zoro and Mihawk, and it's almost disrespectful to call it a battle because Zoro was well out of his depth, so let's just call it an encounter. Now, for those of you who want to know what I'll be referencing in this video, I'll be looking at One Piece manga chapter 52, using the Viz translations and more specifically looking at Zoro's promise to Luffy and then analysing their journey post this and seeing whether he's broke his promise or not. Now, before I get started, as usual, make sure you leave a like on the video as it helps so much with that YouTube algorithm, and make sure to subscribe so that you can remain up to date whenever I, Mr. Premps, drop more content just like this. So to start off with, let's take a look at what Zoro's pledge was to Luffy, and to provide some context, this was after Zoro was so easily defeated by Mihawk. He went on to say to Luffy, "Luffy, were you worried? If I fail to become the world's greatest swordsman, you'll be disappointed, right? I will never lose again. From now to the day I beat him to become the world's greatest swordsman, I will never lose again." And I think this is where the debate begins, because Zoro made a pledge just not for himself, but a promise to his captain too, that he will never lose again until he's beaten Mihawk. However, if we look post this moment, there have been multiple instances in which Zoro has quote unquote been defeated. The first instance of this was against Arlong at Arlong Park, when Zoro was buying time for Luffy in order for him to come and defeat Arlong. But to be quite honest, I think we have to admit that Zoro lost this fight. So I mentioned this to my friend that I was having a discussion with, and he highlighted some technicalities to me. He told me that Zoro was still recovering from his slash by Mihawk, which I accepted, and also that he was using borrowed swords, which, now that I'm recording this, I actually haven't gone back and double checked, so let me know down in the comments if he's actually telling the truth. He even highlighted to me that Zoro's battle was actually Hachi, which once again I also accepted, and he continued to justify the loss by explaining that a full strengthened Zoro would easily have been able to defeat Arlong, which actually I didn't accept because Luffy himself struggled against Arlong. But at the end of the day, regardless of any technicalities, if we look at the facts, Zoro lost this fight, and I can't see a way to justify this. But maybe this was just a one-off, or not, because Zoro lost again in the Skypiea arc to Enel. And this was when Enel had attacked Robin and Zoro was infuriated, highlighting she's just a woman, and as he went to attack Enel, he couldn't cut him and he was struck by lightning to the extent he was unable to move. And when Luffy finally arrived, he said, and I quote, "Zoro, what are you doing? How could this happen with you here?" Once again highlighting that yes, Zoro is indeed strong, but more of his shock that Zoro actually lost. Now, before you all hang me out to dry, this is probably the perfect time to just remind you all that I'm actually a huge Zoro fan. I love his portrayal in the story, and whenever we get to see him, he's just that guy that you can't hate. And we're always anticipating what he'll do next and when we'll get to see him next. So just remember that this video is solely looking at the promise he made to Luffy, and if we can count these as losses. Or maybe something was lost through translation of what Zoro really meant when he made his declaration. So to go back to the examples, Zoro lost again against Akiji, and this was after the Davy back fight, and honestly there's not much I can say here. This is Akiji, an admiral of the Marines and comfortably top 10 in the verse, against a pre-time skip Zoro who didn't even know Haki. And to be honest, if we think about it, Zoro probably can't beat Akiji now as things stand, so if we look back then, it's a bit unfair, so let's just move on. And by moving on, there's still more, because the next loss on Zoro's CV was against Rob Lucci in Water 7. And again, I sympathise with Zoro, as both him and Luffy were fodderised by Lucci the first time round. And it's understandable. Let's face it, for most of us, one of our most favourite fights were the Straw Hats vs CP9, and we saw the lengths that Luffy had to go to in order to defeat Lucci. I mean, he created his gears for goodness sake, so Zoro losing is no shame at all. The last encounter in which I'd like to highlight is a moment none of us can forget, and that's Bartholomew Kumar post Thriller Bark in that infamous moment where he fodderized all of the Straw Hats, and we got that amazing nothing happened moment from Zoro. And honestly, it gives me chills whenever I think about that moment. But for the purposes of this video, do we call this a Zoro loss? Because even though he took Luffy's pain, he wasn't able to beat Kumar. In fact, he tried and was unable to cut him, calling him a cyborg, with Kumar clarifying that he was actually a pacifista. I guess what I'm getting at here is that Zoro has probably lost multiple times since making his promise at the Baratie, and I'm unsure whether these are significant or not. Another moment that some people think would count as a loss would be against Kizaru at Sabodi, but let's not get into that, because I could spend another few minutes dissecting that interaction. And in Zoro's defense, I think we require a bit more clarification on the inference from the translations, because I honestly think that Zoro meant he would not lose another sword fight until he's beaten Mihawk. But I could be wrong. But if indeed the meaning stays true, and Zoro meant to say that he would not lose another fight in general, then surely he's not met that expectation, and all these examples are evidence of his failure. But honestly, I really hope this hasn't been seen as a video to bash Zoro, as the reason I made this video is to get the thoughts of you guys and girls. So tell me, do these events count as Zoro's failure on his promise to Luffy? Or are we able to blindly look past it, and if so, what's your reason? The biased Zoro Stan within me wants to look past these encounters and act as if they never happened, but it's really hard to justify. But give me your thoughts in the comments. As I mentioned, I'll try to keep this as a short video, so I'll end things here. But as always, if you like anything I've had to say, please make sure you like the video, and if you would like to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss out when I drop more gems just like this. Save!